At the age of just 27, Rishabh Pant is already India's greatest test wicketkeeper batsman. Along with that, he's also currently in the world one of the best wicketkeeper batters out there.
Scoring close to 3,400 runs across 46 test matches with an average of 44 and a strike rate of 74, with 800s and 1750s under his name, you would already find these numbers very, very impressive. Except with Rishabh Pant, it's a lot more than just these numbers. Now, before we talk about Rishabh Pant, his numbers, of course, and the style of play, and why he's so special, hit that subscribe button.
It's ironic how when Rishabh Pant made his debut back in 2018, a lot of people criticized not only the decision to pick him but also his style of batting. However, it's funny because it's come a full circle now and the Indian players and fans in general appreciate Rishabh Pant for the kind of innings he plays, the style in which he plays and his general attitude towards test cricket. While over the years, Rishabh Pant has definitely had his fair share of recklessness, his high risk, high reward batting is something that in the long term has definitely proved to be India's boon. This is also reflective in his test record itself, but more so in the last couple of seasons of test cricket where he's absolutely taken off in terms of batting. A testimony to his approaching batting peak has already appeared in this England series where up till the third test match, Rishabh Pant has already scored 425 runs. He's done this at an average of 70, a strike rate of 78 and he's also got 200s and 250s in just 6 innings. And it is no surprise that this being his third tour in England and for the third straight series where he's got a century in this country, he's definitely broken a lot of records along the way. He not only became the only Indian wicketkeeper bat to hit twin centuries in the same test match, he also became just the second wicketkeeper in the history of test cricket to do this. Not only does he now have the most number of test hundreds by an Indian test wicketkeeper, but even beyond this, he holds this record in England as well. Even for a visiting wicketkeeper to come to England and score as many centuries, Rishabh Pant is the first on this list. And even for just any wicketkeeper to ever play test cricket in England, this is the most number of centuries ever scored by a wicketkeeper. Pant has also been prolific not only scoring runs at home but also in Sena conditions. This is also once again reflective in the records he's broken. Pant has scored 6 centuries in Sena countries and this is the second most by any designated wicketkeeper in Test cricket history. And for India, he just tops this list with the most number of runs ever by an Indian wicketkeeper in Sena conditions. He's also fourth on the all-time list for most number of test runs scored by an Indian wicketkeeper and he's second on the all-time list for most number of test sixes by an Indian batter, currently sitting at 88 sixes. All this and he's just 27 years of age with at least 8 to 10 years of test cricket left in him.
And with Rishabh Pant for the Indian Test team, it's not just him as a wicketkeeper. Since 2020, when a lot of prolific batters like Virat Kohli, Ajinkya Rahane, Pujara and even Rohit Sharma latter half of his career was struggling, Rishabh Pant was consistently performing. Because since 2020 until the 4th Test match in this England series so far, Rishabh Pant is the highest run scorer for the Indian team in the Test format. Across 35 Test matches that Rishabh Pant has played, he scored more than 2,600 runs with an average of 44 and a very impressive strike rate of 75. In this time period, he scored 6 test centuries and has 15 half centuries in his name. Now, all of these are numbers with Rishabh Pant. One of the things that make him very, very special is the fact that a lot of his runs come under pressure. Is the fact that Rishabh Pant, regardless of the situation or the pressure that he feels, is able to play his natural game. And because of this, he's able to perform under pressure more often than not. And it also shows in the numbers. But before we get there, what we've defined as pressure is when he walks into bat every time he scored a 50 plus score, the average runs per wicket is less than 25. Now, of course, there might be situations even after he walks into bat that the Indian team might be under pressure. For example, if he walks into bat at 150 for 3, which might not be pressure under our definition, the team may have lost 4 more wickets by the time they reach 180 and Rishabh Pant is still batting, and that can still be considered pressure, but it's not a factor that we have considered. We have just considered him while walking into bat. Out of the 25 50 plus scores that he has had, there have been 10 occasions where he walks into bat under pressure situations, which is 40% of all of his 50 plus scores. And even if you look at his 800s, there are a lot of examples just in these 800s where he is either the highest scorer or the second highest scorer, but considering the fact that the other batters in the squad haven't performed, these centuries are just clutch. For example, when he scored his first century in South Africa, he was the only batter in that innings to even cross 30 plus, and he stayed 100 not out by the end of that innings. So it just goes to show that he's never overawed by the occasion, and can play his game when need be, regardless of the situation.
Another characteristic of Rishabh Pant's style of play is that he looks to dominate the bowlers. Unlike a lot of batters, especially in the test format, what's different with Rishabh Pant is that he always looks to put pressure on the bowlers and is a counter-attacking style of player. The most recent evidence of this is in the current India vs England series, where as of the third test match, Rishabh Pant's balls per boundary ratio was just 8.88. To put that into context, it's much lesser than Gill, who's at 10.8, and KL Rahul, who's at 11.9. And in fact, it's much closer to a Ben Duckett, who has a balls per boundary ratio of 7.5. Of course, boundaries are not the biggest factor in test cricket and not something that ideally should be looked at, but it goes to show that Rishabh Pant looks to apply the pressure through boundaries whenever he can, but also the fact that his series strike rate itself is close to 80 at 78.4. He's also one of the most ultra-attacking batters currently in world cricket. For India, of course, since 2020, he has been the highest strike rate for any batter with a minimum of 10 test matches. Even amongst all of the batters in the world since 2020, Rishabh Pant has the fourth highest strike rate in test cricket. His strike rate is comparable to a Travis Head or a Ben Duckett. With Rishabh's style of play, what's also very important is simply the way in which he bats and how that helps him throw the bowlers off. Rishabh Pant is one of the few players who, for the same delivery, can manufacture multiple different shots. He throws the lines and lengths off the bowlers by stepping down the pitch at the very second delivery, as we've seen. He also goes right back into his crease and can ramp the ball over fine leg. These are just a couple of shots. He's also fluent in a lot of drives, both on the offside as well as the leg side. And while there is no definitive method to the kind of madness that he shows with the bat, something that we've observed over the years of test cricket is that even if a bowler is in the midst of a really good spell, is bowling 5 to 6 good deliveries every over, Rishabh Pant will try and do something different because of the fact that it's a good ball and try and throw the bowler off.
If this is the right way to go about batting can be arguable, but this method has clearly worked for Rishabh Pant as of yet. And this is why we come to the third point in terms of what makes Rishabh Pant so much more special. It's not only the fact that he can score all around the park, it's also the fact that he can score all around the world. If you look at these wagon wheels, these are the wagon wheels of the 2 centuries that he scored at Leeds. And something that is crystal clear from this wagon wheel is the fact that he's doing exactly what a batter needs to do to score runs in England, and that is score runs off the square. What is interesting is if you look at the wagon wheel of his first test century in the first innings, a lot of his runs, which is 66% of the runs, came through the leg side. Whereas if you look at the century in the second innings, 60% of the runs came in the offside, which just goes to show that Rishabh Pant doesn't necessarily favor a side and can score runs both sides of the wicket. Not only this, if you look at the wagon wheel, you can of course see runs above the wicketkeeper as well, both the wheels behind the wicket and in front of the wicket. Again, this is yet another example of Rishabh Pant being able to get boundaries and get runs all around the ground. But Rishabh Pant is a lot more than just a batter who can score everywhere in the ground, because if you look at his averages in different countries, Rishabh Pant averages 35 plus everywhere around the world except for New Zealand and the West Indies. In fact, he's a beast at home with an average of 55, but he averages more than 40 in England and Australia. And this is because of his ability to play spin and pace quite well. We have seen Rishabh Pant get runs on a quick wicket. We have also seen Rishabh Pant get runs on tracks that spin square. And is also suggested by his numbers. He has an average of almost 50 against the spinners and an average of 31 against the fast bowlers.
And now with Rishabh Pant being the vice captain of the team, the added responsibility has only seemed to make him a better cricketer. What firstly stands out is the kind of attitude that Rishabh Pant has had on the field, especially when he's marshalling his troops and ensuring that he's giving good inputs, not only from a leadership group perspective, but also just in keeping the team's morale up. He's one of those characters who completely seems to enjoy his cricket, and that's also something that brings the best out of him. Something that's also become evident for India through this particular England series is a lot of times Rishabh Pant is heard talking to himself on the stump mic. Now this is great because he's usually found talking to himself in a very positive manner, and despite being in really crunch and pressure related situations, Pant is able to maintain his cool and calm, and that is something that also reflects over the rest of the team, with him now being in a leadership role. And lastly, simply because of his sheer ability to bat extremely well, we tend to forget that Rishabh Pant is also a wicketkeeper. From the time of his debut up until the present day, Rishabh Pant has gone through a fair amount of flack for the kind of wicketkeeper that he is. However, what's definitely changing and something that's been a growth curve for him is that he's consistently improved as a wicketkeeper as the series have gone on. This has been a video on Rishabh Pant and why we think he's a very important asset for this Indian team. As the years progress, it will be interesting to see how his career eventually shapes up. If you've liked this video, definitely like, share, and most importantly subscribe. Leave your comments down below and definitely give us a follow across our socials. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.